And we're live at the podcast of the Octopus Movement with a very unexpected turn into this podcast. And I can hear myself, and I have to shut that down. So sorry. Welcome, everybody, at the podcast of the Octopus Movement with our very special guest today. It's Nourah AlFaisal. I'm so happy you're here, Nourah. This podcast is about the founding members of the Octopus Movement, and normally Lydia is here. But things were going differently today. It's a bit of a chaos, and we love that as nonlinear thinkers. Nourah, welcome for being here in our podcast, and welcome for being a founding member.
Thank you, Perry. I'm very, very honored to be a member. Absolutely. And I'm really happy that I get to see you because we've been trying to schedule this for a while. So it just so happens that we're doing it with lots of other people as well. So I'm happy.
Yes. And this is, so here's Perry, totally unprepared for this beautiful interview with Nourah. And it's at a different time, different setting. Everything is different. So Nourah, we're just going to have a fun conversation together and hopefully inspire some people around the globe who are listening to us. Is this, this is exactly the first question immediately for you. Is this kind of chaos easy for you? Is this something that triggers positive things for you?
Absolutely. I love chaos. I thrive in chaos. And I thrive when I'm trying to do 10,000 things at once. Because I find that I find it really inspiring and energizing. And usually that's when you're sort of thinking on multiple levels and then all the thoughts get mixed up and inspire each other. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but it's a lot of noise and I like that very, very much. I really dislike it when it gets quiet.
And is quietness for you when there is a lot of structure and everything is already pre-organized and written in stone, and it's a system, yeah. It's tied together and there's no space. Is that difficult for you?
So this is really strange, but when everything is 100% structured, I find that that's actually quite good for me as well. But I'm not in a point of innovation or a point of acceleration. So in order for me to be able to let go of everything and just kind of calm down, I love being in a structured, like when I was a kid, I used to dream of being in like one of those really strict Victorian boarding schools where you didn't, they told you when to eat and what to eat and you just didn't have to think of any of that. And then I could just live internally in my brain and in my books and in my imagination. And that's fine for me as well. But when I'm trying to work or to achieve something, then when things are too regulated, I think it's very difficult to achieve that balance because you need some kind of structure or methodology or system, especially when you're talking about lots of teams. But it's so easy to build out innovation and fun, and that's where all the magic happens, right? So you just you have to find that balance because there's multiple different types of people in a team. And so there are people like me who thrive on the chaos, and there are other people. I work with Harun, who we both know, and he is the definition of order.
He doesn't like chaos, right? Sorry, Harun.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's wonderful because I think what we do, and I love this, is every now and then Harun and I sit down and he maps my brain. And I tell you honestly, I never understood how much was going on in there until he mapped it out. And then it was so easy because what we do is we'd like put it up on the wall, and then the whole team can see the brain and they can see kind of what we're thinking and where the connections are happening. And then it's much easier for them to follow as well, right?
Yeah.
So
but then I'm curious, Nourah, when was it in your life where you understood yourself like these are two sides from me? One side is I love structure and I love things to be in line and the same thing, so I don't have to worry about that. But on the other side, I do embrace chaos a lot. That drives my creativity in life. Was there some point in your life where you were discovering this space where you saw yourself in these two different elements?
Well, I always thought that I don't want to call it structure in that way, but there's a certain freedom in letting go of decision making, right? So there's a free flow in that. When all the decisions are made and everything else is done, then you're free to kind of roam, as is the way I think of it. And for me, that was something that when I was growing up was really good for me. Especially I was a bookworm, so I loved reading obsessively. And so it freed up a lot of time for my imagination. So I didn't really have to think about anything. But when I started working, I would have to say, and when I started designing, I realized that I was possibly tiring for other people. And I didn't quite understand why for many years. I didn't quite understand why it was sometimes difficult when I was having a conversation. I found it very difficult to kind of to talk through everything, and I just wanted to get to the point and the heart of the matter. And that's when I realized that going through the methodology and the system and everything was a little difficult. I had this project that I was involved in, which was quite a big project. It was the first time I'd ever been involved in something like that. And the project, by definition, it was an events thing. And anyone who's worked in large events that are like 1,000 people or up knows that it is the most chaotic sort of situation, a temporary event, trying to set it up, trying to get it all done, trying to get it, and to be thinking on all the different levels about safety, about how people are going to be transported, how like all these different things. And I saw that people around me were like going crazy, and I just, oh my God, I was in my element, because I could think about this and I could think about this, and I realized that was exactly the element that I loved. But I understand it's not for everyone as well.
That's true, right? And I wrote down two words listening to you. I wrote down everything and together. I think that really resonates when I think about you, Nourah, that everything is a lot with you. Can you share the listeners, the audience, what everything is for you? You do so many different things and very successfully, and you're passionate about so many things you're doing. What is everything for you?
So, see, I tend not to think of it as a lot of different things. I always think of it as I do one thing along a lot of different things. So I'm a designer by trade. I'm a jewelry designer. That's the first thing that I did. I continue to be a designer. It's my love. It's my heart. It's my expression. And so I bring that kind of creative thinking, that design thinking, that kind of idea of figuring out where the problems are. I'm drawn to where things are not working. That's always been something that I loved. I tell people if I have a talent, my talent is for understanding where something is wrong, and my obsession is trying to figure out how to fix it. So because of my community, which is the design community, and because of all the changes and everything that's happening in Saudi, I decided to create a consultancy that's really focused on design thinking as a tool and focused on the design ecosystem. So the creatives, basically, and how to bring the understanding to those in the different aspects that are trying to create this brave new world of ours, that your designers are your superheroes, right? Because these are the people who are going to give you the out of the box thinking. These are the people who are going to give you those solutions that you never thought about. These are the people who are going to create fantastically new situations and solve your problems in ingenious ways. So we've been doing that, and that's where Harun and I work a lot together, and that's kind of thrown me into multiple different things. So I was the Saudi Cup director, which is one of the largest horse races, biggest prize in the world, and I was really, really involved in the event side. So really bringing in fashion and fun and creativity and just that sort of element, and really helping to create an event now which, for better or worse, is sort of the Met Gala of Saudi Arabia at the moment. And so all the fashion designers come in and display their creativity. And it's become really quite a thing. If anybody wants to see what happens there, then you can just Google it and you'll see all the images of all the designs and the costumes. And it's wonderful because it brings my love of our heritage, the Saudi heritage, and the creativity that's there. But it also kind of connects it to a young generation who really want to explore, experiment, and create, fun stuff out of it as well. And it's equally horrifying, shocking, wondrous, and I don't know, everything in the middle that you can imagine when it comes to creativity meeting heritage and the tensions that happen there. So it's really something that I'm proud to have been part of. I know a lot more about horse racing than I ever thought I would. At any point in my life, I have nothing but absolute admiration for the amount of commitment it takes to be within that kind of field. But I focused mainly on the fun stuff, to be honest. The fun stuff for me as a designer.
Yeah. But that means, Nourah, that you've really created the space between, as I call it, linear and nonlinear thinking. That balance between these two spaces, you've mastered that into an art, if I'm listening to you, that you're in between them, also with the heritage and the innovation in your country, that you're using it both by design and create something beautiful out of that, which I think is really beautiful. But what does design then mean for you then? Because I know a lot of people, when they hear design, then they have some thoughts based on their own experience or knowledge what design is. But how do you see design? Because when you're balancing in between these two different worlds, then I'm guessing you see design maybe in a little bit different way than most people do.
So design is innovation, right? And so it can be innovation when it comes to an object. Design is essentially solving a problem through the creation of something, whether it's a system, whether it's a methodology, whether it's legislature, whether it's an event, whether it's an outfit, whether it's an object, right? It's finding a way to evolve something into something better, and it depends on what your goal is, right? So I think that being a creative or being a designer or someone who is design oriented means that you are willing to look in every field and to kind of mingle, to kind of look. So I'm a jewelry designer, but I also design objects. I also design solutions. I don't think there's such a thing as a designer who is just one thing. I don't think there exists human beings, even though they maybe think they are, but I don't think anyone exists that does only one thing. I think we're not built that way. There are some people who are better at it or have embraced it more than others. But there's this multiplicity that I think we all have. And it depends how comfortable you are with it and if you want to embrace it or not.
And what would you like to say to people that are in the world struggling with the fact that they find themselves a little bit too nonlinear, too creative, and have difficulty in fitting into the system or the box thinking or whatever you want to call it, that they feel misunderstood because they're so creative in their thinking and they're a bit lost because they have a feeling of, not being accepted or not being seen by the world. And what would you say to these kind of people that are struggling with their own creative brilliance?
I think it's very difficult because there are sort of these pockets that don't understand how to capitalize on the talents that are there. But for me, I always believe in that thing of find your tribe, find your people, find your place. And if it's not where you are, then move on, sort of thing. You need to find where you best fit. For me, it's never been one place for very long. It's been this kind of thing where I move from one thing to the other, because at some point you're not needed in the same way and you can't give as much, or maybe the problem's not so big, or you know what I mean. So you need to, if you are that creative type of person who needs to constantly be in that mode, I would say go find your next problem, go find your next place. Be open to moving from space to space. If you're not appreciated where you are, I think then don't stay.
No. I'm wondering, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking at the same time, Nourah, as a designer, would you also consider that you're an artist in designing your own thinking? Because our thoughts are constantly coming into our brains, right? Sometimes it feels like we don't control them, and we see that as the only reality there is in our lives.
Yeah.
Would you say that a designer is also, that there are also mental designers or thinking designers, that they can design their own thinking pattern or their own thoughts in how they flow? Can you
So
do that?
yeah, I absolutely. I mean, we all have our weaknesses for sure. You know, we all have our bad days or our bad times or whatever that the case may be. But I make a conscious choice to understand that every failure or every situation or every whatever that works, I consciously make a choice to make it something that I learn from and something that I understand how not to do something in the future. So it's all good to me. You know, there's no such thing as really bad. Every experience brings with it a new learning, mostly how not to do things. I found, but it's less now. But also, I'm someone who I'm also someone who really deep dives into things. So I'll find a new obsession, or I'll find something that I've been asked to look at or something, and I will deep dive. I will become completely obsessed with that and only that for a period of time. Until and I'll do that through reading, I'll do that through studying, I'll take courses, I'll do whatever I need to do to be able to understand that problem as much as possible. And then I try to find the similarities between it and solutions that are in different fields, right? So to try and keep yourself open to all of those things. But I'm actively building a way out of whatever situation I'm in. I'm not someone who will sit or will wallow or will allow thoughts exterior from others, emotions, or even within myself to control how I react to a situation. Not for very long. I mean, we all have, again, our bad days, but not for very long.
No. So this is also then a creative brain that is necessary for a designer. Is that, can I say
think
that?
yes, and you have to make deliberate choices in your creativity, right? And you need to, and one of the things that I love about design thinking, or the process of design thinking, is that iterative thing, which is, it's just, you know, failure is part of the process. You keep trying and you keep trying and you keep trying. So you've never lost, you're never a failure. You just haven't, you've not reached the end of the process yet, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I love about that kind of design thinking. And I think that applies to everything in life.
And talking about choices, this is my own personal curiosity that's been triggered here. What made you decide to say, okay, I want to be a founding member at this global octopus thing that is happening with all these nonlinear thinkers? What happened in your design thinking to make the decision, yes, I want to be in this space?
So I never identified that I was nonlinear. I always thought in my head, up until very recently, I just, you know, thought that I was creative, and maybe, you know, I kind of, in my head, I imagined that I fell from one thing, stumbled from one thing into another, sort of thing, because there is no, funny, I'm going to use the word, but there was no grand design in how I was going to, achieve anything. That there was never kind of like a plan. I just kind of like, oh, isn't that interesting? Plop, now I'm doing this. And then, oh, isn't that interesting? And then plop, I'm doing that. And so I just thought I was really lucky, and I'd kind of kept falling into other things that were interesting, and oh, this is fun. And then I was doing this course, actually. It's my MBA. And one of the courses, one of the sessions that we were doing, we were talking about how to create an environment that was an environment that was safe for people who were nonlinear or neurodivergent, how to design a space that was inclusive and that would allow them to kind of function at their optimum, and to be able, and what systems we needed to be able to do that. And the beginning of the session, and every time the lady said something, I was like, and she just kept giving this litany, and it all resonated with me. And I got up and I went and I spoke to her, and I said to her, a lot of this resonated with me. And she said, actually, which was really interesting for me as well, and then I deep dived into that for a while. She said actually that there are a lot of women, older women, who have never been, who are diagnosed later in life, or if you want to use that word, I don't really like that word, but who come to the realization later in life because the symptoms, again, I don't want to use that word, but the let's say indications or the clues along the way are so many, so different and so diverse in themselves that they don't know. And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm a superhero now. I remember thinking, this is great.
And that's a very positive thought, right?
Well, for me, it was because I really kind of, it allowed me to just accept that, okay, it's not some kind of mistake that I've fallen into all of these things. And it's not by chance or by whatever, but what it is I've naturally gravitated to where my strengths are. And I've luckily been able to, and I found that since I had this acceptance, I've really been able to thrive even more. So for me, it's like it's suddenly a gift of understanding after many years. So I love it. And then exactly at that moment, you came into my life, and I was like, if this is not a sign from God, I don't know what
Then I
is.
don't know.
What is? This is fantastic. So yeah.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And I'm almost quiet from that. I love that. This is something I was thinking about 3 years ago when I started the movement, that I see all these beautiful people out there and they don't always fit the norm or the box or whatever. And we're missing out on an amazing opportunity not to look at these things, whatever you call them. And that's why I like to refer to that as nonlinear thinking. I also wrote down together. I know you are a master in together, in working together. Of course, we spoke about Jeroen already, and he talks very highly of you and how you manage everything with the team and people. It feels to me that your connection with others is something that resonates within the world of nonlinear thinking, and I always refer to that as the human mycelium, because some people said to me in the beginning, oh, you're building a community. From a design perspective, I didn't like the word community that much. I rather refer to that as a human mycelium. So looking at the human mycelium where we are all connected, and your elegant dance between heritage and innovation, how does it work for you? How do you see that connection between humans, even though we don't always understand each other, and still we can think without thinking and feel things, that this is right, but we don't understand yet why it's right. um, how do you see that in your universe, where you bring everything together in Saudi with design thinking and beauty and art and creating new projects?
So for me, art, design, creativity, it's an expression of the human mycelium. It's how they express joy, pain, hope. So for me, that's why creativity is so beautiful to me, because it is that it's almost the physical manifestation of that feeling of connection, or
Hmm.
that empathy, or that feeling of being understood. And you know, in I'm very lucky in that I've always just really liked people. You know what I mean? I find people so interesting and so surprising, in how they react, or how they feel, or how they suddenly evolve into something different. And I love being part of that evolution, whether it's with my teammates or the people around me, people in my family. I love how they manifest, um, their evolution, and it comes in the most surprising ways, and I love being part of that. And it's, for me, I'm definitely a spectator, I want to say, in and as much as well that I'm always sort of cheering people on, because I really do believe that the potential within people, in each individual person, is always so much more than they actually believe possible.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and if we allow each other to just be, and that's sort of what's important to me, is that I allow the people, either the people who are working with me or the people in my life, I allow them to just be who they are, and to try and if they want to sort of evolve, or to become whatever it is they want to become, to kind of be there for them and try and be that for them. And I find that, you know, this karma thing is fantastic, because that's what I find from people as well. I you know, you give good energy out into the world and you get it back.
Hmm.
Inevitably you get it back. And I like to think that people see that I care, I hope, and understand that everything that I do really is to help, or I try to help. I come from that intention of wanting to help, and I think more and more people are doing that. I come into contact with people in their own ways, in their little bubbles, in their little. I think more and more we're understanding that the true, you know, path forward leads to a kind of peace, when you know that you're supporting the others around you. And that, you don't want to use the word community, but I love the human mycelium, because it gives me images of like, the nervous system in the brain, or in the lungs, or under the ground, all the roots, or all the, you know, this is something that's repetitive in nature, repetitive within the human body, and I don't see why humanity is not connected in the same way.
Before we go into the last question, because time flies, it's already almost half an hour.
Wow.
Um, what you just said resonated with me so much, because I think in cooperation, the starting point is not the skill set or the end result. I think that the starting point is love and caring and the human connection. And
Absolutely.
I like to say, and Karen knows that, I like to say to people that we work together with, it's not your this and this company or not your solution that I want to work with. It's I want to work with you, and that's the starting point for me. That's that connection that works beautifully, and then the rest is going to be easy. And I think in the linear world, there's a lot of focus on skill sets and achievements and diplomas.
But skills can be learned,
Exactly. Yeah.
if that's the correct way. I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm someone who believes that you need to continue to learn all the time. And that's not just, you know, academic learning. There's all kinds of different learning in the world. Um, and and so skills can be, you know, learned, achieved, attained. And they can be discarded as well, right?
Yeah.
So
It's
it's
about the human connection, right, Nora? It's
that
it's it's that vibration that is so important without being woo woo. But it's I think it's
It
important
is
to.
woo. There's nothing wrong with being a little woo every
No,
now
no,
and then.
no, absolutely. But I just love to say that word, to be honest with you. I like to say the word woo woo.
Which is why I said it twice.
Congratulations on being on the list of Fast Magazine, most creative people in the Middle East. I love linear recognition to nonlinear thinkers. I think it's so important for the world to understand how amazing and how beautiful designers, creative, innovative people are. So congratulations on that. I really like that. Well done.
I'm very honored to be on a list with some people that I really do admire very much, and I really think that more and more the corporate world is understanding. I mean, they all
Yeah.
have their little think tanks and their innovation hubs and their whatever, just for people like us.
I agree. Final question.
Yes.
It's already 30 minutes, but I'm dying to ask you this. Um,
Mhm.
if if everything would be possible and
Mm.
I can just be a magician or someone special and I can organize anything for you, whatever you want, who would you like to spend the day with? That person can be alive or not alive anymore, fictional, anything you can design, any name you can design.
I'm
Who would
I'm
that
gonna
be?
get I'm gonna get very emotional now. I just would love to have another day with my dad.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Was he a nonlinear thinker as well?
I think so, thinking back on it. He was a poet and a writer and a self described dreamer.
Hmm.
And he wrote songs and he lyrics, and he was also, he had, he ran a football team, and then he had, yeah. So I think he was. I actually think he was, now looking back on it.
That's a beautiful way to say thank you for this beautiful conversation, Nourah. And I'm so happy that I was able to do this with you.
You.
I'm so happy with the chaos we've created today. um, Thank you so much. And I would love to read one day some poetry of your dad. I think I would really appreciate that if that's possible, if we can translate that into
Oh
whatever
no,
language I understand.
it's been translated. So yes,
Oh,
it's
it's
more
been.
love poetry, but yeah,
Okay.
I'll send you a copy.
Let's dive into that. Um, Nourah uh, AlFaisal, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a founding member. Thank you for spending time with us here on the podcast so
Thank
people
you for having.
can
Really,
know you
thank.
a little bit. Yeah. Thank you so much. See you next time. Thank you, audience, for listening. Tune into the Octopus Movement. Turn on your nonlinear thinking. Tune into the human mycelium, right? And drop out of your laws of thought. Maybe there is another design possible to think about things that are important to you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And again, Nourah, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.